All right, lovies, it's me, Matt, creator and lead writer of I Need a Miracle, like it says at the bottom of the screen. I Need a Miracle is the microfiction podcast where every episode is a prayer. Some prayers are answered, but a prayer answered with a miracle can upend the world. This is one of a series of live streams to celebrate the fact that the show has been out for a couple of years. It first started airing in August 2024, and also to get excited in the run-up to crowdfunding season 2, which will start at the end of August this year. We had a false start with episode 1, where the stream basically didn't work. I think now because it was way too hot. But a couple of weeks ago when we looked at episode 2, that one seemed to go pretty well. The video on demand is still up there on the Foggy Outline YouTube channel if you want to catch up with that. A bit of backstage trivia from that recording. Shared some notes and drafts and things. And that's pretty much the formula that I'll follow for today as well. Before too very long, I'll get out of the way of the stream and I will screen episode 3 of I Need a Miracle for us. And then after that, I've been digging through my old notes and drafts and scribbles that I had when devising the series and writing the script for this episode. So I'll share some of those bits and pieces with you after we've all listened to the episode together. If you're joining us from the Fiction Podcast Weekly, welcome, and thank you very much to Lindsay Harris-Thraille for mentioning the streams and the upcoming crowdfunding campaign in the Fiction Podcast Weekly. If you're watching this, you're probably a podcast listener. And if you're a podcast listener, you should be subscribed to the Fiction Podcast Weekly. Also, if you're in the podcast industry in any way, if you make audio drama, then the Fiction Podcast Weekly is a kind of must subscribe. If you only listen, if you're an audience member solely, it has lots of stuff in there about new shows that are starting and shows that are reaching milestones and things you might not have heard about. And if you're somebody who makes audio drama, there's lots of opportunities in there, casting calls and competitions and festival openings and that sort of thing. And in the case of the one that went out last Friday, notifications about a series of Monday evening listening parties where we can revisit season 1 of I Need a Miracle if you were somebody who has already listened to it, if you listened to it when it was first coming out, if you have caught up with the series since. This is just a chance to listen to those episodes again a little bit more communally, a few of us all listening at once, and to maybe chat about it a little bit. Ask me some questions if you want to. And if you've never engaged with I Need a Miracle at all, if you haven't heard of it until Lindsay shared the call out in the Fiction Podcast Weekly, or you're just discovering it now, I think this is the best way to discover new audio drama, is through listening parties like these, where you can share your reactions in the chat with everybody. I will respond to stuff if you leave questions or comments or anything like that in chat. I will get round to them. I'm on a slight time delay from you for not buffering reasons. So I might be a bit delayed responding to your comments, but I will do it. So I am excited to respond to comments. I haven't had a comment on the stream before. So if you are watching and you have thoughts about the episode or questions at all, then please do share them in the chat. But this is in danger of starting to go around in circles. So without further ado, let's sit back and enjoy episode 3 of the original season 1 of I Need a Miracle, titled Forget All About Me.
Foggy Outline presents I Need a Miracle, produced by Wireless Theatre. Forget All About Me, written by Matt Boothman, performed by Saffron, Coomber. Just the usual, if you please. Smooth running between here and the Pendant tomorrow AM. No mechanical trouble, no staffing issues, you know the ask by now. Carrier only runs twice a day. It's like they've never heard of anyone keeping a full diary. I can't be turning up to the valuation delayed or rushed or ruffled in any way. A sense of calm and assurance is everything in a negotiation, you understand. Appreciated as always. Your benevolence, I entreat you to hear me and intervene. The early post skywards could use a quick bump this PM, just a point or two. Appreciated as always. I entreat you to hear me and intervene. Look, the annual gains are sitting at all nines, and I could just do with them ticking over before the club dinner tomorrow. You know those old farts don't care what the digits actually say, only how many of them they can count before the decimal point. And if it's fewer than the same time last year, they'll treat it like a bloody upheaval. Seal up the shutters, freeze in place until things settle down. You and I both know, with the acquisitions in the pipeline, we're looking at sustainable growth in the value of my collection over a 5-year horizon. I was the first mover on the early post-Skyward pieces, and now every collector on the scene is falling over themselves to get hold of one so they can bluff like they were in from the start. I have the power to set the exchange value. We'll have enough to exchange for 2 more masterworks by the next upheaval, as long as I don't blink first. There's nothing really for the club to fret about. But the problem is, they know I've been carrying them. Or more accurately, the problem comes if they have to admit I've been carrying them. Don't expect they'd handle the loss of face very well. So, I'm not sure what the best thing would be to massage this. Maybe some sort of nostalgia swell for the pre-eidetics, they're about due one. Or a backlash against that new movement, the Zoopathy dialogues. Our friend Tellier has put together too many eggs in that basket, in my view, and his loss is my gain. I wouldn't ask, only it's a small little thing with a disproportionate effect on confidence, and without confidence, I'm that much more limited in what I can provide. Amberlynn keeps hinting, but of course you know what Amberlynn wants. Appreciated as always. Your benevolence, I entreat you to hear me and intervene. Nostalgia's all very pleasant, but we're heading for the wire, and it's looking like the pre-eidetics don't quite have the pull we want, sorry to say. Zoopathic dialogue as art is exploitative while the jury's still out on animal sapience, I'm reading here. That's what a lot of people are saying. I'll leave it with you. In your benevolence, I implore you, hear me. How? Just explain it to me. That's all I want. I want to understand the thought process at work here. What else was so important? What's the order of precedence here, the priorities we're working with? Who was... Didn't you hear me? Why weren't you listening? Every other time, you always... I've come to expect a certain... Everything I ever asked of you, every petty, piddling little request granted like that. Not a moment's hesitation, like it was nothing. Is it any wonder I took it... I took you for granted. Perhaps. But can you blame me? Really? It was you who trained me to. Get me to the valuation on time, help me keep the club happy. In your benevolence, oh, let the orange wine Anne Boleyn likes be in stock at the larder today. And then the one time it's life or death. The one time. What could possibly have been more pressing? Which selfish little prayer seemed more urgent to you? Who had your ear to whine about wanting a more convenient life while I was on the other channel begging for deliverance? Anne Boleyn could have died in a stupid accident at barely 60, a good century and a half of living so very nearly cropped off. You forget it can happen. Our lives are long and our bodies robust in your benevolence. You plan your lives together on that basis, of course you do. There's someone up there looking out for you, so why worry? Think of all the good times ahead, all the ripe fall years. When I heard what had happened, heard there was a chance he might not pull through, I didn't know what to do. All I could think was, this isn't part of the plan. Seal up the shutters, things will level out. Nonsensical as a response. Losing him, that's not something that could ever blow over. It couldn't ever swing back my way. But that's the only way I knew to react. That and, of course, this. Bringing it to you. I recall this incredible warmth and calm infusing into me as soon as the thought occurred. I was unfrozen in a moment. It had been silly of me to worry, I thought. In the balance, they said he was, and you've always been willing to tip the balance my way. I cursed myself for worrying at all, for losing that 1 minute to panic when I could have had the request in already and be on my way back to him with peace of mind. So I put one in, post-haste, and hardly gave Anne Boleyn a thought all the long way home. I know how that sounds, but I knew he was all right at that point. You'd have sorted it like you always do, and we'd laugh about the near miss when we were back together again. Only you chose, this time, not to come through. I'm making an assumption here, and frankly, it's a generous one, that you didn't hear. Someone else had your attention. It better have been something bloody apocalyptic. It better have been something. Because if you chose to ignore, I don't think I want to know. I don't even know what I'm asking you for. I don't know what I want. Just not this. Not this feeling that you... Am I being punished? Is that it? For abusing your benevolence? You never had to listen. You never had to answer. I know you don't always. People are always asking me my secret. Every petition, every plea, every prayer for years and years. For the stupidest, tiny, little, petty, bloody things. There's something Anne Boleyn always says. There's no harm in asking. The worst you can do is not listen, he always says. I love the man so much it scares me, but he's dead wrong there, isn't he? You can do worse than not listen. You can listen and listen and listen until you don't, or you don't have to anymore. You ignored me when it mattered. Fine. Ignore me all you want. Blank me out. That's what I'm asking you for this time. Stop listening. Forget I exist. Never hear my voice again. Leave me alone. In your benevolence, you've heard my plea. Now I entreat you to grant it forthwith.
isn't just about me. After everything that's happened, after everything you've given us, you've given us so much. I just never supposed to doubt that.
I Need a Miracle is a Foggy Outline podcast produced by Wireless Theatre, directed by Robert Valentine, produced by Sarah Golding, casting by Fiona Thraille, broadcast assistance by Teresa Milewski, music by Catherine Seaton, sound design by Sarah Buchynski, recorded by Stephen H. at Jukebox Studios. Find more audio gold at wirelesstheatrecompany.co.uk and foggyoutline.com. Thank you for listening. And we're back. Hope you enjoyed. This is the heaviest one of the series so far, I think. I was talking last stream. I was about to say last week, but of course I missed last week. A planned miss because I was entertaining my business parents. But yeah, I talked last time about that there's a definite feeling with episode 2 of something bad could happen. Almost probably is going to happen unless some intervention is made. Something bad really does happen in this one. And we only know because this is the first episode that breaks the format. I feel like you have to do at least 2 episodes that stick rigidly to the formula before you're allowed to break it, because otherwise you haven't set up the pattern enough. So people can't actually tell that you're breaking the pattern if you haven't set it up with at least 2 episodes where things are consistent, which is why I put this one here in the order, so I can get away with this being the first time we hear multiple prayers in the same episode. We have presumably quite significant time skips in between a lot of them, although there's a through line of the first few that suggests that the collector here is quite a frequent flyer, literally and in terms of praying. I realise I haven't talked about the Waller yet. That is an inside baseball audio drama term that I wasn't aware of before I worked with Wireless Theatre Company on this series. It's the indistinguishable overlapping murmuring out of which the main narrator of each episode eventually emerges. And we got that Waller by just taking an extra 2-3 minutes with each cast member when they'd done all their takes and we had all of the audio we needed for them to actually get their episode done. We just asked them to riff on the variations on the prayer mantras, the "In your benevolence I implore you, hear my plea and intervene," and the "In your benevolence I implore you, having heard, to intervene," and all the various variations we're going to hear on that. Just ask them to riff on that for 2-3 minutes to give editor Sarah a big bank of murmurs to interweave to make this kind of cacophony that you, the listener, the listening God, are plucking individual prayers out of. And I found out a long time later, after the series had been out for months, that the cast members, the 11 of them that we had in the studio, in the booth for the 2 recording days, aren't the only people who contributed Waller for those intro and outro segments and the interstitials for this episode specifically, in between those prayers, the murmurs for Saffron's The Collector's Prayers to swim in and out of. Because I was talking to audio drama titan Karim Cronfley, I think at Audio Drama Hubfest or possibly at London Podcast Festival, several months, maybe even a year after the series had come out, introduced myself with the title of this series. And he said, "Oh yes, I remember Sarah asked me to do a bit of Waller for your show." So I had no idea until way later, until the series was already produced and out, that there are voices in those murmuring cacophonies that are not our main cast members. There are some other random people or potentially luminaries of the scene mixed in there, including Karim. So thank you very much, Karim. We get a few other little bits of world building detail in here. The Collector references the Skyward upheaval, which is the fallout of episode 1, which, if you're keeping up with the series on these listening parties, unfortunately the episode 1 listening party, the VOD was so laggy and buffering-y and stuttery that I didn't bother uploading it. So do go back to the podcast itself at foggyoutline.com/I-need-a-miracle and catch up on episode 1. But in brief, David Holt's character, the artist, prays for basically an alteration to gravity so that he's able to build an otherwise impossible votive worship tower. And the Skyward upheaval is the outcome of that. It's not explicit at this point. It becomes explicit in next episode. So make sure you tune in next week, and we'll talk about that. We get somebody in that episode who's been directly affected by the outcome of the artist's prayer. And the Collector also mentions zoopathy, which is the outcome of Harry Myers' character, the Lover's Prayer, in episode 2. So it turns out we're 2 for 2 so far, with characters whose prayers actually do get answered. And I think in a series called I Need a Miracle, that's all about a world where miracles do happen, I think it's important that the first few episodes, at least, miracles do happen. So the artist gets his gravity change, and the lover gets... the artist gets their gravity change, and the lover gets his ability to talk to his pet. But it seems like it's not... these miracles aren't only granted to them, to the people who asked for them. It seems like maybe zoopathy is a little more widespread than the lover might have anticipated. Another break of the format in this one, the Collector doesn't do the sign-off. Talking about the mantras that we got the performers to riff off when they were doing their Waller. Both our characters so far, the artist and the lover, have done a proper formal sign-off to their prayer, reprising the "In Your Benevolence." Again, important to be reinforcing this early in the series, that is a consistent element, that everybody in this world seems to believe that this God is benevolent, whether we believe that or not. It's nice to hear it, given that we're sort of in the God's position listening to these prayers. But Saffron's character, the Collector, here doesn't do the sign-off. She has her own unique sign-off, appreciated as always, which obviously gives you an idea of how often she does this and how often she gets what she wants. I really love... I don't know if I've shouted out Catherine Seaton yet on these streams. I can't remember if I did last time, but Catherine's jaunty, business montage music for the first half of this episode is fantastic, and I love it. And it's still so of a piece with the calming but slightly sinister main episode theme that you hear at the top and tail. clearly by the same composer and still part of the same suite, but such a different energy for all of this bustling around the continent, the world, all over the place. And that's one of the differences, or one of the changes that came through in the editing and redrafting process for this episode. The early drafts of this episode are pretty similar to what you hear in the finished thing, or what you heard in the finished thing just there. The main differences are basically when I first drafted these episodes, I didn't have a clear idea of what business this person was in. She wasn't called the collector until later down the line, once I'd pinned down what her whole deal was. I just knew I wanted this person to be someone who had a very business-like attitude to the divine. Saw it almost like treating God as your PA, your personal assistant. So what sort of person in this world would have that attitude and would have need of that kind of businessy personal assistant role? Early drafts, she doesn't talk about the early post Skywards or the pre-eidetics. She instead talks about the twin polar index. She says the twin polar index could use a bump this afternoon, just a point or two. That line's pretty much still in there. It's the early post Skywards instead. And there's a part where she's talking about where she's considering what kind of miracle she might need to get the effect that she wants. I'm not sure what the best thing is, she says. Maybe there could be a nostalgia wave for the Slashwind 4. It's about due one. Or a scare about Teliera's thing, the one with the double wing. So in that early draft, she's sort of a little bit stock market manipulating with the twin polar index. And she's maybe like investing in some sort of flying machines, maybe some sort of transport solutions. Which, and instead of this thing about like, maybe we don't like the zoopathic dialogues because maybe it's unethical. Instead it was, 2 wings increase drag and raise risk of catastrophic stall. I'll try that one again. 2 wings increase drag and raise risk of catastrophic stall to 30%, I'm reading here. That's what our cool heads say. I quite like that term. That's what our cool heads say. I'm a bit sad to lose that. But that kind of engineering feel didn't really work for what this turned into. So very engineering-y in those early drafts, where I was just trying to pin down the style and the kind of the voice and the way of speaking. I wasn't really bothered about what it meant for the world building, was leaving that to later drafts. So that's the main thing that changes from draft to draft for this script, is that eventually this person becomes an art collector. Because I was thinking about, in a lot of ways, this is a utopia, and especially I wanted it to seem more utopian in these early episodes so that we get this building sense of, actually, maybe this isn't quite as utopian as we thought it was. But this is a world where people have a direct line to divine intervention and to have a decent chance of getting what they pray for. So I didn't feel like you'd have capitalism. The more I sort of looked at that original draft where she's talking stock market language and engineering focused stuff, it just didn't seem to ring true for the world. So I did a lot of thinking about what are the sorts of things that I guess would still, that people with that kind of capitalist attitude would still occupy themselves with in a world where they could just live a life of leisure and they don't need to build up a fortune in order to live, or in order to be better than everybody else like you do in capitalism. So it had to be kind of an opt-in pursuit. And I felt like rather than accumulating wealth, because I didn't really want there to be that in this world, I don't want it to be all about the money or all about the fortunes. It's much more about accumulating clout and kudos And again, given that this is a world where everyone lives a long time, unless something horribly accidental befalls you, like presumably happens to Amber Lynn here. Everyone lives a long time. Everyone has access to, like, everyone has their basic needs met, because what kind of benevolent god wouldn't grant you your basic needs if you didn't have them met by society in the first place? So everyone has their sort of day-to-day needs met. Everybody lives a long time. Everybody's just sort of pursuing whatever brings them joy. We've talked about callings, which is a concept that starts to that is seeded in episode 2. And that means that people are going to be making a shit ton of art. People are going to be... The very first episode is somebody making this grand work of art. And yeah, there would be people all over the world just pursuing all sorts of wacky sculpture and painting and poetry and theatre and all these sorts of things, because they have the leisure time and the freedom to do so without it needing to be a side hustle that they do on the side of the thing that they do to live. And can you tell that parts of this are a bit of a power fantasy? That there are bits of this world I wouldn't want, but that part of it, bring that into this world, please. And so if you've got people in the world who want to accumulate clout and have bragging rights over other people for some reason, and you've got a bunch of people in the world who are just creating art for art's sake because it brings them joy and because it's the calling that they found in life, and they are spending 50, 60 years perfecting it before moving on to the next thing, I think you would get art collectors. And the collector here is part of some sort of art collecting club. She mentions the club, which is sort of... There's clearly some internal competition within the club, or there's like some decisions by committee where they're clearly deciding together what to acquire. But it's also clearly for bragging rights against other clubs. And so, again, there's no money. It's all just about trading artworks to build the best collection. You know, these art collectors, they're playing Animal Crossing to some sort of extent. They're building the best collection, and they're going to other people's collections and saying, I want that piece you've got. What piece do you want from my collection? And they're swapping magic cards like we used to do in school. And so that's what she uses all of her prayers for, is just trying to enrich her collection, or her club's collection, with the best stuff. She's clearly got opinions about the sorts of art that have started to arise post the Skyward upheaval, which we'll learn more about the nature of in episode 4, and post the zoopathy thing happening. That's clearly some sort of performance art, the zoopathy dialogues. And then, of course, this horrible thing happens, and I guess that's an important world-building detail as well, is that we discover for certain here, if we weren't sure in the first place, that not every prayer does get answered. Sometimes the deity of this world misses things or chooses not to hear them. Again, if we're going with this idea that we, the listener, are the god of the world because we're the ones hearing the prayers, what does it mean that we didn't hear that important prayer that she references where she prayed for Amber Lynn to be okay? Does it mean we don't have any control, or you don't have any control because I decided not to let you hear that prayer? But yeah, interesting to decide what that means. Does that mean that we tuned it out, or does it mean that this god is not fully omniscient and doesn't actually hear everything? So I was looking at the original longhand draft there. I've got some of my typed drafts here as well. I'm just going to have a quick look through and see if there's anything vastly different. Like I say, I don't think this one changed that much draft to draft, except some names changed, and Anne Boleyn was Evie, then was Eviette, because I was trying to make the names a little bit less Earth-like. First longhand draft, it was still the Slashwind 4. Let's see, there was a pre-table read draft here as well. And by this point, it's art. By this point, she's an art collector, and we've got the post Skywards and the pre-Eidetics in this one. There's a couple of really, really lovely little rhythmic turns of phrase in here that I think Saffron absolutely nailed. And I was going to say that I don't think there's much to share in terms of backstage gossip from the recording day for this one, because Saffron Coomber is just a professional. So I remember it being just a nice, smooth recording, this one. But I really enjoy every petty piddling little request, and I don't think I fully appreciated at this stage in my audio drama writing career what I was asking by putting so many P's in a row in that line. But Saffron and Stephen, the recording engineer, handled it like champs. So it was petty piddling little request. And what's the other one that caught my ear there? It's in the second half I was about to call it the rant. It's definitely not a rant in Saffron's performance. But there is something of the cold rage to it. For the stupidest tiny little petty bloody things. I seem to remember playing around quite a lot with the order of the words there. But I really like how that came out, and I think we did take a few runs at both of those little phrases, and I just love Saffron's delivery of those. I think that's about it for that episode. Like I say, I love the kind of the big emotional slam in the middle of the total swerve in mood, and Sarah Buchynski, our sound designer, throwing in the siren in that longer interlude to just hint to us that something's gone horribly wrong is lovely. And I don't know whether it was Sarah Buchynski's decision or Sarah Golding's. Sarah Buchynski did the sound design, Sarah Golding did the editing, to throw in a little bit of Lizzie Waterworth's Waller in that interlude as well. Lizzie is, I believe, episode 5. She plays the child. She's also the voice of Horrid Henry in those cartoons. And to have the siren over that plaintive, I don't know if you caught it, but Lizzie's plaintive little, please to be heard. Oof. And yeah, to go from that extremely businesslike typewriter chatter of Saffron's to the much more measured, clearly suppressing rage. There was something in that very, very first draft. There was another interlude. I decided to cut it in the end and just have, once we get into the something has gone wrong, it's just all one long prayer from there. As the collector works out, are they just talking to God angrily, or are they actually asking for some sort of miracle? There was originally a tailing off, and then a suggestion that she prayed in terrible and righteous anger, and that then there was another interlude where there's a time skip, and she comes back and prays again, a little bit more collected. In the end, I just decided to make her collected the whole way through and imply that there is a lot that's gone on in the background. But yeah, I enjoy that you can get that kind of huge emotional swerve and tonal swerve in a single monologue that is, I think that episode is only about 10 minutes long. It's cool. Monologues are cool. And we should make more of them. This is the final thing to say to just wrap up the stream is, as I said at the beginning, we are going to crowdfund fairly soon to try to make a second season of these. Starting the last week of August, we're going to launch a crowdfunding campaign. Quite a modest one initially, just to get the writing part done. And this is not something that we had to worry about for season 1, because I wrote all 12 episodes and I wrote them all, drafted them all in lockdown and polished them all up afterwards, and sort of presented them to Sarah at Wireless already kind of complete, asking for feedback, but also basically saying, like, these are all done, can we just make them? And I never took a writer's fee for that season. I just wanted to get the thing made, so I didn't get paid for it. So this time the writers get paid, and this time the writers aren't just me. So we're bringing in a raft of a pantheon, as I've been saying, of fantastic audio drama writers to write us some more episodes of this, because I don't know how many more of these I've got in me. I've written one for the second season, but I don't know if I've got another 12. And also, you don't want to hear another 12 all from my head. This is a big, exciting, strange, crazy, miraculous world, with themes that you shouldn't only get tackled by me. So bringing in a pantheon of other writers, and this crowdfunding campaign starting at the end of August is mostly just to pay them. So the BBC standard fee for a podcast episode or audio play of the length that these episodes tend to be is £250. So we're going to try to raise enough to pay 6 writers £250 each to write some more scripts for this. And we'll also be fundraising for a story consultant whose job it is to decide what order the scripts go in, and maybe give the writers some notes at the early stages to say, your script, your episode is going to be number 4, so can you please seed in some hints of the outcomes of 1 to 3 and build a bit of a longer series arc and that sort of thing. And also it'll pay for a casting director, because we want to attach some fantastic voice actors to these scripts once they're in development. So it'll be quite a modest goal. Hopefully it'll be achievable and hittable. And it is to pay for scripts, story development and casting. And then the idea will be we'll crowdfund for the rest, all the recording and editing and post-production and stuff at some point next year, once the scripts are a bit more locked down and the actors are attached. So look out for that. Tune in to the rest of these streams and I'll keep you posted on progress. These streams will keep going once the campaign starts, so I'll keep updating you on where we are on the goal and how much more we need and that kind of thing. Meanwhile, you can keep up at the Foggy Outline newsletter, which you can find every way of keeping up you can find at foggyoutline.com. But the newsletter sign up is on that homepage there. We do a monthly newsletter. It's not only about I Need a Miracle, but it will have the updates about the show in there, alongside interviews and stuff about our other projects. You can also follow me on Blue Sky, Instagram and Tumblr at Merely Matt. And you can follow the show on Instagram at in.your.benevolence and on Tumblr at inyourbenevolence. Or if you just want to keep following us here, don't forget to, I can't believe I'm going to say this, I can't believe I didn't say this last time, like and subscribe to this stream or to the video if you're watching this on catch up. So subscribe to the newsletter, follow us on the socials, or just keep watching these streams, and we'll keep going through Series 1 as we build towards Series 2. Thanks very much for joining me. I've been Matt Boothman, creator and lead writer of I Need a Miracle, the microfiction podcast where every episode is a prayer. Some prayers are answered, and a miracle can upend the world. I'll see you next week for episode 4,